y'all. So how's everything been so far? For you? Everything been okay for y'all? Classes and everything? Learning good stuff and, things that we can use to make changes in our lives, changes in our conditions and all that good stuff, yeah?
Yeah.
Good. Well, okay, first off, I just gotta say, the next time that I come to Detroit in April, I'm throwing holy water on every tree that y'all got in this motherfucker city. Because damn, my sinuses. Oh, the allergies, I can't. It has just, oh my God. I thought New Orleans was bad, but no, I'm sorry, y'all got us beat on that.
We got y'all beat on, okay.
Oh, yeah, on the pollens?
Oh,
Yes, indeed.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, you got us way beat on that. Please. So today what we're going to be talking about is the left hand of conjure work. Okay? The reason why I call it the left hand, you hear a lot of people talk about, right-handed work versus left-handed work. In other words, good work versus evil work, all that kind of foolishness. Because in the work of conjure, things are not about what is good or what is evil. Things are about what is balanced. And in order for things to be balanced, you have to know how to work both sides of the coin, or, both hands. So we're going to be talking about the side that, a lot of people don't want to talk about, but everybody want to know about. And, that's the side of when it comes to, what we call laying tricks. A lot of times you don't hear like the word like spells or curses or hexes. You'll hear, what's called laying a trick. And where that term comes from is when conjure made its way here to this country, of course, during the same time if y'all were in my class yesterday when we were talking about the Middle Passage, and we were talking about the slaves that were brought over. In this country, primarily the slaves that were brought over were Congo. And the Congos, not unlike the others, like the Yorubas or the Fons, worked a lot with the leaves. And so when the Congos were brought over, they, like I said yesterday, and I'm repeating myself a little bit to those, who were here yesterday, but anyway, it's good for you to hear it more than once. Had absolutely nothing, but their spirits. But they come to another place that has, there are some leaves that were the same, there were some, that were not. But the term laying a trick came from essentially being on the plantation and tricking the master. Whoever that was, to get done what needed to be done. So, we hear the word, like I said, spell or curse or hex, but also like in conjure work, you'll hear a lot more is laying a trick. And laying a trick has evolved in today as, what could be synonymous with curse work or hexes or, whatever the hell you want to call it. Now, one of the things that I get all the time, well, if I do this and this is bad, you know, and it does, you know, something to somebody that, you know, it's going to be, karma's going to come get me, or, you know, or I'm going to have my car. Okay, first of all, in Conjure, karma is bullshit. Let me just tell you point blank. Like, you know, and I respect, you know, those other traditions that have that belief, but we do not. And part of the reason why we do not is because it's not about, you know, what you do comes back to you, but it's about keeping things in balance. So I'm going to tell you a little story, which I often, you know, tell when I teach this class, is that let's say that you in your house and, you know, and you decided, you know, you go into bed and everybody go to bed and everybody sleep, family sleep, whatever. And all of a sudden you hear a crack of a window break in your house. And now there's somebody coming through that window into your house to do harm to you and to your family. Let me ask you this question. Are you going to turn the other cheek? Hell no, you ain't gonna turn the other cheek. If somebody break into my house, I'm gonna promise you this, they ain't never leaving. I ain't even calling the people neither, because they'll never find body. They ain't never going nowhere. I'll use every single one of those body parts. I'll make me a coffee table and a lamp and everything. Won't even know about it. That's right. I promise you that. I'll skin that motherfucker so much. Yes, indeed. But it's a point of balance, and sometimes when it comes to that, it's not about, you know, the harm none, or, you know, if I do this, it's going to get sent back to, you know, me or whatever. But sometimes you have to do what is necessary to make sure that that balance is maintained. Harm none, you know, or the whole karma thing, you know, is also protecting. Which a lot of people don't really realize, is that you have to protect yourself. It's protecting you. So the harm doesn't include yourself. You know, if people are to go by the ideology, I personally, you know, do not, because if you fuck with me, then guess what? Then that's it. And I'm going to show you that I am the thing that goes bump in the night. I can promise you that. So when we get down to all of this, one of the things that I love to do is I like to go into work, because this is all what? Spiritual work, right? Spiritual work is what? Work. It's called that for a reason. It's not called spiritual easy. Okay? First thing, number one, is that you have to understand that we have a responsibility to see what is balanced and what is not. If somebody cuts you off in traffic, does that make it justified or balanced to, you know, to lay a trick on them? Of course not. And that's where we get into the whole thing of making sure that those scales are equal. Because what happens is that when things go out of balance, whether it's something on one hand or something on the other hand, what happens is chaos comes in. And when chaos comes in, it just, you know, wreaks havoc and everything turns into a world of shit. Right? Right. So looking at that balance and looking at, you know, what is justified and what is not is actually part of your responsibility. As spiritual people and as spiritual workers, you have a responsibility not only to your spirits, but also to your work, right? And that responsibility is making sure what you do is justified, is balanced, right? So, you know, we all got this shit where, you know, we're going to be blessing this one and blessing this one, and there's a blessing over here, and, you know, all that. But, you know, let's talk about, you know, the thing that's under the ground, you know, where the crickets and the worms dwell. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you, because like I said, I personally love work. So I'm going to give you like some stuff just to have in your arsenal of when shit go down, now you are the thing that goes bump in the night. When somebody fuck around on you or fuck around with you, then guess what? Not today, devil. No. Because sometimes you have to beat the devil at his own game. You understand? So, let me ask y'all a question, because y'all know I love to ask questions. In your mind, what do you believe constitutes justified laying of tricks on someone, or justified curse or hex? What do you think is, go ahead.
I would say like a rape or some type of sexual assault.
Sure. Okay.
When somebody messes up your livelihood.
Big one.
I was gonna say it's just intentional, somebody intentionally does something to harm you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Who else? What?
That's what my kids.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or the money.
Absolutely. Right. Now, listen, if you listen to all the answers of what everybody just said, there's a common thread in every single answer that was just said. What's that common thread? Does anybody know?
Livelihood.
Hmm?
Was it the livelihood?
Causing you pain or
Intentional.
Was it?
Who said that?
Intentional?
Yes, right there. There was an intent to do some sort of harm and by harm, I don't necessarily mean physical harm, because you know what? You can harm me by harming my livelihood. You can harm me by harming my kids. You can harm me by, like beating me or doing whatever. You can harm me by trying to call the people and tell lies on me so that, something like there's always through that line is an intent of causing some sort of harm. Harm is, again, not always physical, but it has its way in all kinds of situations and scenarios. Go ahead.
If you're not trying to harm someone, but you're trying to control them, and they feel it like harm, I'm not saying this is me, okay?
Well,
But is that controlling? I don't know. Is that the same thing? I don't know. I'm trying to force you.
are you talking about like somebody like manipulating or dominating?
I'm saying dominating. Anything I'm trying to force you to do. I'm not trying to harm you. I'm just trying to get you to do. And you don't want to. Is that harm?
Well, the question
They
would
don't want to
be,
do it. Is that harm?
the question would actually be like in the context of that domination,
Yeah.
what's the intended outcome for that? So,
And
but I mean, does the intended outcome cause some sort of harm to, that individual? Because domination in and of itself, to get somebody to do what you want them to, that's not necessarily harm at all. But dominating somebody to get them to do things that, cause some sort of unnecessary change, and then that can be construed as something else.
Would pulling somebody out of their will, out of their own free will, be considered a harm?
Well, that's manipulation, in a way, but, let's just be real. Sometimes, is manipulation always a bad thing? No. But if you're trying to manipulate somebody, okay, let me just give you an example of that. If you're trying to manipulate somebody to break up with their man so you can go and get their man, that's different. Because that's some bullshit. You know what I mean? But I mean, it's stuff like that. Like, people call me about stuff like that all the time. All the time. And I say, why? Why? Because I love him. Well, if he loved you the way you love him, then you wouldn't have to worry about this shit, would you? I'm just saying. Or, and there are people who will do this kind of work. I will not. 90% of the time I won't do it. But the other, like, most popular thing that I get is that, can you bring my man back? Baby, they your ex for a reason. Let it be. Why are you trying to resurrect old bones that ain't gonna do nothing, put you in the same situation you were in before, and then you're gonna be miserable when they do come back? I'm gonna tell you a story about that actually, which is actually kind of funny. This was, I don't know, several years ago, I had a client who lived in upstate New York. And she called me, and she was with a guy for, I don't know, like 6 or 7 years or whatever. And they had separated, they had broken up. And the guy was now with someone else. And I told her, I went through the whole thing. Okay, he's your ex for a reason. Why you want? Well, because we had this connection. They always say that, connection. I love that. We had this connection. Okay, you had a connection, but that connection's now, not there. But we're still good friends, and and I want him back, and and he's with someone else, and can he be brought back to me? I said, well, of course he can be brought back to you, but why do you want that? Oh, because I do, and I did I was on the phone with her for, I don't know, about an hour and a half, telling her every single reason why that she shouldn't do it. Now, I'm the type of person, I say, look, I don't want to do this. It's not, in this to do. Can I? Yes. And then for me, what I do is, I say, what, how determined are you for this to be? Because sometimes, and again, this goes along the line of, responsibility and looking at things. Sometimes people need to learn their own lessons, in that. So we keep going back and forth, and every 5 minutes that we're going back and forth, the price continues to go up. I raise that price, yep. It continues to go up because I'm trying to dissuade you from it. But, some people can't be dissuaded. So those are the people that, the saying that a hard head make for a soft ass?
Yeah.
That. So I said, all right, fine, I'll do it. So I did it for her. I brought him back to her. They got back together, and they had their thing. 2 months after they got back together, she calls me again.
2 months.
Yep, 2 months after they got back together, she calls me again, and she said, "Oh, I don't want to be with him. I know that I realize that my mistake, is here, and I don't need to, to be with him, and I feel guilty, for blah blah blah." And I told her, I said point blank, I said, "Baby, you wanted it, you got it. Now you handle it because I'm not undoing shit." Hard head make for a soft ass. You understand? So there we go with that. So anyway, now that I'm off that little stool that I was on, soapbox, whatever you want to call it. Here's some works that y'all can do for enemies.
Thank you.
We all got enemies. But you know what's really fun about enemies? If you have enemies, that means you're doing something right. If you ain't got no enemies, I don't want to be around you because I know that there's some shit wrong. With conjure work is very hands-on, and it is very practical for what is around you. Remember, when the Congo's came over, they didn't have the same leaves that they had. They didn't have, like the resources that they had. They just had what was around them. The birth of Conjure in this country came out of a necessity to overcome an oppression. That's how this magic was born. And so sometimes what happens is, remember this, don't ever forget this, but magic will always follow the path of least resistance. Whatever it may be. You can take and you can use magic in almost anything. especially like in this kind of work, because remember, not everything was available. That was, it's like, you couldn't like go on the internet and, and order these herbs and these herbs and these herbs. What the hell, that didn't even exist. But whatever was around you, which is why in conjure work you see a lot of things that people would never associate with magic work at all. Never. So, one of the things that I love to do, because one of the biggest problems that people have is other people doing this. They fucking run their mouth like some fierce. Tongue be shaking all over the damn place. Well, there's nothing to say. Except for dropping your name out their mouth. That's what they do. So for this, what you're going to need to do, this is one way to handle it. There's another way to handle it as well, but this one is a little easier, I suppose. You're going to need to get yourself a jar. And I'm not talking, don't be going out and trying to buy a jar. Just make a pot of spaghetti or some shit and use that jar, okay? Just do that. That's fine. Listen, you ain't got to be all like, everybody be trying to be all bougie and shit about that. Let me tell you something. When I go and I need holy water, I go into St. Louis Cathedral in New Orleans. I have a fucking Prego jar. Spaghetti sauce, I go right up to the holy water thing like, nice look. So do. Don't say shit. So you ain't gotta be all like bougie and all that stuff about the biggest interference when it comes to magic work is that we tend to overcomplicate things ourselves. Don't do that. It doesn't have to be complicated. It doesn't. Because remember, everything there is a spirit to everything, and you have spirits in you that can take and use these things as tools. Okay? So you get a jar. You're going to get a lime. Some black pepper. Some alum. A-L-U-M, alum. Usually you can find it in the spice aisle at the grocery store. You can also get it from the Motown Witch back there. I already saw that job. I was like, Lord. If for some reason that you can't get a hold of alum, you know what you can use in its place? Aspirin. You're going to need to get some stick pins. And then you're going to need a picture of the enemy. Small picture. It doesn't have to be a big one, but a small one. You're going to need a little bit of white vinegar. Not much. Now, here's what you're going to do. Oh, you're going to need a couple other things too, but everybody probably has them on hand. But you're going to take that picture of that enemy that's doing this, running their mouth. And you're going to get yourself a needle and some black thread. And in that picture, you're going to sew up their mouth, sew it closed. After you do that, you're going to take that lime, you're going to cut the lime in half. And you're going to put that picture on one of the halves of the line. You don't have to fold it or none of that. Just gonna put it on there. And then on top of the picture, you're gonna sprinkle the black pepper and sprinkle the alum. If you don't have alum and you have to use aspirin, take the aspirin and put 4 of them in the other half. Just push them in there. Then, once you've done that, you're gonna close it up, like make a sandwich out of it. Close the line up. And then you're gonna take those stick pins and you're gonna put the stick pins all around the line, like where you cut it, to hold it together. Is there a magical number of stick pins that you have to put in the line? No. You're gonna take that jar, you're gonna fill that jar about, maybe almost halfway full of water. Then you're gonna take about 3 or 4 tablespoons of vinegar and you're gonna put it in the jar. And then you're gonna take that lime and you're gonna put that in the jar.
Did you get a half teaspoon vinegar?
Hmm?
You got half teaspoon vinegar?
Like 3 or 4 tablespoons, teaspoons, whatever. Just like pour a little bit of vinegar in there. Once you've done that, you're gonna close up the jar. Then, what you're gonna do is you're gonna wrap that jar in some tin foil. And then you're gonna bind it up with some black string, ribbon, whatever. Bind it up with that. And then what you're gonna do is you're going to take that jar and you're gonna put it in the freezer. And leave it. Now, the entire time that you're making this jar, the whole time that you're making this jar, you need to be speaking your petitions over it, speaking, name whoever the individual is. Every time that my name falls out your mouth, you're going to be in pain or you're not able to speak my name or whatever it is that you want to say. Your mouth is going to burn, or what have you. Whatever your petition is. And then you're going to put it in the freezer and you're going to leave it there and let it freeze. Next question, as always, is how long do I leave it there? I know somebody's thinking that right in their head.
Yes.
You leave it there until they stop talking shit. It can be for like 2 weeks, it can be for 5 years. But what happens is that once it's together and sealed, they're gonna stop talking. Now, if you take that jar out of the freezer, you let it thaw out and such, you know what's gonna happen? This. Keep them in the freezer, let them stay there. In the freezer?
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, because I have like a cow tongue that's been in my freezer for like,
You know, a what?
a cow tongue that's been in my freezer for like.
The tongue,
A cow tongue.
you take that shit to the graveyard, you nail that to a tree. Thaw it out, nail it to a tree. 3 iron nails.
Okay.
Mhm. So, one of my favorite things to do is, and this is kind of like, it's like some petty shit, but one of my favorite things to do is like with enemies and such is sometimes, you know, you want to like, you know, fuck with people. You just do because they keep fucking with you, so, you know, why not? What's good for the goose is good for the gander. I personally do not own a cat, but I have friends that do. And so what I'll do is you take a picture of an enemy, and you take it to a litter box and you stick it in there, and guess what? They start to smell like cat shit. You got somebody, like, let's say that you're in a relationship and your man has a side piece or whatever, that's, you know, and that ain't part of the deal. You take her and you take a picture. If you can get like a full picture, that's even better. You take them in there and you might want to get a glove or whatever, but you wrap the picture in some cat shit, and that way the vagina starts smelling like fucking rotten cabbage, despair, and I wish I would never have not done that. Sometimes you gotta make it smell. I'm just saying. This work is very, like I said, it's very practical. It's very hands-on. Like, let's say that you have somebody that's incredibly vain or whatever, and like they're like, they have all like, they're so concerned about, you know, their looks, but they're an enemy or whatever. And like, you know, they look like, you know, one of those people that's like, you know, 30 pounds soaking wet, and they're all like, you know, oh, I'm so skinny and blah, 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 blah. You know what you do? You go to the grocery store and you get you a can of Crisco. And you take it and you put that picture in that can of Crisco, put that shit behind the toilet, and leave it there. That way they'd be funky, and then they start to go like this. That's right.
That's right.
I'm gonna keep that one.
All right. You make them choky and funky. All the same time, that's right. That should be rethinking your looks now, baby. You want to talk about and shame everybody else for this? Well, guess what? What's good for the goose is good for the gander.
Empathy is the best teacher.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Sometimes people need a taste of their own medicine to learn the lesson at hand. And that's what it is. Let's say that you want to make somebody uncomfortable. Let's say that you want somebody to move away, you know, to not be near you. We absolutely have hot foot powder, you know, that you can go and lay at the doorstep or whatever. Sure, we do. But you know what else you can do? Let's say that you don't have access to hot foot powder and you don't have any made or whatever, for whatever reason you don't. You can get a piece of that individual, whatever that may be. If you maybe have a piece of their clothing, you have like, again, a photo or whatever, a piece of the clothing is great. And what you do is you take that and you go stick it in an anthill. Put it in some fire ants. And again, every work that we do, it doesn't matter what it is, you're always making your petition. You're always speaking your petition. Why? because life and death is in the power of the tongue. Everything that we say, you know, has the ability to manifest, and this is about manifestation. So you're speaking your petition, why? To manifest, but also to assign a job. This is the job that needs to be done. This is the job that needs to happen, whatever it may be. And it doesn't have to be complicated. Like I said, sometimes what happens is that we tend to overcomplicate things. And that is the biggest deterrent for successful work. You know, if you come to me talking about like, you know, this candle needs to be at like, you know, 2 degrees longitude at 17 degrees latitude, and it wasn't at that, it's my shit goes, I'm gonna look at you like you retarded. I'm like, what? No. Don't overcomplicate things. You see. Another thing that you can do, especially on enemies that are aggressive, that you know the enemies that come out. Now, I'm going to tell you, like I said, this is very hands-on and practical work. But you go somewhere and you find you a chicken head, you can get them at a butcher, or me, I just sacrifice them myself and then take the head. You go find a chicken head and you shove it in their mouth, and you close up the mouth, and you take the mouth to a railroad track, or the head to a railroad track, and you throw it down by the track.
When you put what in my mouth? The picture?
Any personal concern of theirs, a picture or what, or like better, you know, if you have like, you know, something else of theirs. If you don't, the reason why I say picture is because sometimes, you know, folks don't have like the other things that, you know, that can be used. But anything can really, you know, be used. You know, whether it's a picture, if you got a pair of drawers, that is a beautiful thing. That is a beautiful thing, because you can tie this shit up in knots all day long, and you know, well, whatever happens, happens. But you know, sometimes people don't have they don't have access to that. Like, see me, I'm a tricky bitch. Like, I come to your house, I'll be like, oh, I gotta go to the bathroom. I'm gonna look at everything in your bathroom, and I'm gonna see what's there. But you have to sometimes, you know. You know, like, go ahead.
What kind of divination works is good when you do it on your own to tell if someone is doing harm? Divination works to tell if someone's doing harm, or they're.
Yeah, you can. Well, I mean, of course, you know, you can divine on, because you're not. In a case like that, you're not necessarily reading yourself, but you're reading the other person. And so when you do the divination, we all know, you know, things that would come up, you know, in a divination if somebody is doing work. And so, you know, so yeah, you can absolutely do a divination. Like for me, like I personally do not do any, you know, any work for anyone else, whether that is on the good side or on the bad side, until I've done a divination. That's the first thing that I'm going to do in that. Because here's the thing, you may need that work to be done, but it may not be me that needs to do it. So, you know, if my spirit say no, then I'll be like, nope, I can't do, but you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to say, go talk to such and such, or go talk to such and such. I'm going to refer you to someone else, you know, to do, because if I'm not going to do it, then, you know, I'll still like say, you know, go talk to this person or go talk to that person, you see. And so, like, you know, when it gets down to it, we always have to listen to what our spirits have to say. We always have to listen to what, you know, what they are deciding, because what are we? We're the vessel of the spirit. We're a servant of the spirit. So if they say yes, then that's what we do. If they say no, then we don't. So.
I think they were asking if there's ways you can find out if someone's doing some shit for you.
Yeah, but you can read the other person. That other person don't have to be present for you to read them.
Yeah.
And so you can read them without them being, and it'll tell you if they're doing work to you.
Okay.
Because it's not, I am not a proponent of anybody reading for themselves. But if I feel like that someone is doing, work on me, I'll do a divination on them. And that's how I come to that conclusion, because I'm not reading for myself, but I'm actually reading on them. And they may not know it, and I don't give a shit.
Or the big kind of attachment towards you.
So, yeah. Go ahead. Smart ass. I already know you got something else.
Can you give us some similar examples of what you do when you're trying to do it?
Oh, are you talking about? Oh, so you want me to? Oh, okay. So, okay, here you go. Yeah, that's a good one, actually. Again, this is another thing that something that you can do to, make somebody's dick so limp that Viagra won't even give it that. Okay. So what you need to do is you need to get yourself a dick candle. Okay, get a dick candle. A lot of times with this, people will either use like a purple one or a black one. Quite frankly, it doesn't fucking matter. People, the whole color association thing, that's more of a human thing than it is a spirit thing. Because back in the day and stuff like that, like, let's just be real, that you couldn't just go and pick colors of this and that. Because why? Anything that had color in it was dyed, and dye was what? Expensive as hell. Color doesn't really matter. So, but I will tell you that, people will, use either purple or black. And what you're going to do is, you're going to take that dick candle, and you're going to use either like a nail or a pin. You never use a knife. Never, never, never carve into a candle with a knife. Ever. Don't do that. Why? Because that knife is cutting work. So basically, you're defeating yourself before you even begin. Don't use a blade to cut into that.
Well, that explains a lot.
Yeah, you don't do that. So, you're going to take, and in the shaft of the dick, okay, in the shaft of the dick, you're going to carve out a hole. You're going to carve out this hole, and then you're going to get yourself a piece of cotton. We're not going to need the whole piece. Probably about maybe half or a third of it. You're going to take that cotton and you're going to dip that cotton in vinegar. And then what you're going to do is you're going to put that piece of cotton in with the vinegar in the hole that you just carved out. Go ahead.
Are you using the nail to carve it out? Or
Yes.
to carve it out?
Uh-huh. And then what you're going to do, is you're going to take the wax that you carved out of the dick. You're going to put it back on the top of it, and then get like a little lighter or something, and you're going to melt it down a little bit so it sticks back, back to the dick. And then what you're going to do is you're going to light that candle. And again, we're always speaking our declarations. We're always making our petitions known. We're always giving the assignment of the job to that. Now, the other thing that you want to do is, whoever this is intended for, you want to get a picture of them, and you want to burn it into ash. Now, one of two things you can do. You can take the ash and put it in the hole with the cotton. If not, you can take the ash and you rub it on the gate. Because now what that does is that gives it a target. That this is who it's from. You see. Then you're gonna light that candle, making your petition. And when you light that candle, you're gonna let it burn the whole way. Now, I'm gonna tell you, when it gets about to the point where that cotton is, it's gonna start to burn hot. So make sure that you're there to watch it, because it's gonna burn hot. And then, let it burn all the way down. And the way that the work goes is that it goes from this to this. You may be wondering why they can't get it up.
Is that permanent? Is that permanent?
No work is permanent. Magic always works a cycle. But it'll work long enough to get the point across. Go ahead.
You said, hold on.
I said, go ahead.
Oh, is there a work to do the opposite? Or,
What?
and then, like, instead of having to go from like this to, from this to this, have it go from this to this? And then the converse, if like a woman's water is not flowing, is there a way to get them to flow or to get them to dry up?
To get a woman's water to dry up,
Like, so the equivalent of.
put her
lady-
inside. You can take her, you can put her inside of a cowrie shell and seal the cowrie shell up.
Wait, say that again?
You can take her and put her inside of a cowrie shell and seal the cowrie shell up. In other words, there's no like penetration, there's no opening. With that, you want to get somebody's dick hard. If you want to get somebody's dick hard, you can use like horny goat weed. You take horny goat weed and you can fix a candle like with that to, well, you know, move it up, get the arousal, or you can go get yourself some Viagra and pop it in their spaghetti sauce.
I got a couple clients that he has some, okay, and what about to get her water flowing?
Good flowing, an open cowrie shell with that in there. For her, she's gonna take those shells. Usually it's either 1, 3, 5, or 7. And she's gonna put it underneath, like between the mattress and the box spring where she sleeps. And, sleep on top of them.
Is there a amount of time that she be sleeping on top?
Huh?
Is there an amount of time that she be sleeping on top? Or is
The
this-
work is done. Yeah. The thing is that like, with this work, people will tell you all the time, oh, this work is gonna be done in 3 days. This work is gonna be done in 1 day, 5 days. That is bullshit. Because the reason for that is because every condition and every circumstance is different. So when I said before that magic follows the path of least resistance, depending on what that path of least resistance is going to determine how long the work takes to hit. So it could happen in a day, or it could happen in 3. Just depending, because again, like, you know, their condition may be a little bit different than someone else's condition. So, you know, those things have to be worked through first, you know? So, yeah. Somebody else I saw somebody else's hand up. Go ahead.
My question is regarding to magic is seasonal, but if you want to undo the trick of a generational curse, it's not only the trick of generational curse. I don't know how that comes into play if it's seasonal.
So I will tell you this. I do not believe in, I'm gonna shock somebody in here. I do not believe in generational curses. I don't, and here's why. what I believe in that people call generational curses, what I call is ancestral trauma. And the way that those things are broken is the trauma is healed as opposed to breaking the curse. So it isn't about like breaking the curse, but it's about healing whatever that trauma may be. And so people talk about like, generational curse where like for example, let's say that, that your grandmother like was horrible with money, and then your father was horrible with money, and then you are horrible with money, and it just seems to be like going down the line. Chances are, in that ancestral line, there was incidents to where that became like a part of how that living was going on, and it just became passed down, almost like a habit between two people. One person's a part of this habit, and the next person becomes a part of that habit because of their influence or what have you. I've found that when it comes to the generational curse, if you will, or what I call ancestral trauma, is elevation of your spirits. Elevation of your ancestors will break everything with that. And so if you're doing that,
I'm trying not to be intrusive, but I can't help it.
But if you're doing that work, then those things can be broken. Those things can stop. They can stop with you. Because here's the deal. Every single generation, there are issues. What people call generational curses. But it's not necessarily the curse, but it's a cycle that has gone on in each generation. But we, have the ability and the responsibility to break that cycle. Number one, it begins with the elevation of our spirits. But number two, it comes with us recognizing that cycle and making sure that we're changing it. Because if we take and we do the same thing in every single cycle and we make no changes about it, we're going to repeat it. And that'll go straight down the line of every single generation and it will not stop. So it begins with the elevation of the spirit, and then it ends with you deciding that it's not going to continue anymore, whether that, is something that is directly affecting you or affecting another member of your family. As somebody who is a spiritual worker, we see through that, past that, we elevate those spirits, and then that shit is broken and done, and then we move on because we know it's not going to continue after us, but it's going to stop with us. So that's what I'd say. That's what I think.
If this was church, I would have called the Holy Ghost.
I have another question.
What?
So, say someone, deserves to get got, and
Oh,
they
yeah.
have a vice that you know about. How can you turn that against?
Someone deserves to get got, and then they have a vice that you know about?
You must turn that on.
Like an element or something?
Or like
No,
they
like,
gamble,
no,
like
they drink or-
So-
Sugar,
Okay, so okay, perfect, okay, great.
Oreo cookies, whatever.
Basically, like if you have an enemy that has something that can be used against them, what you can do is you can surround them in whatever that particular vice is, to turn that vice into something much greater than it may have been. Like, let's say that, somebody who they have issues with like diabetes or what, and I'm talking like sometimes if you want to get like down to the real, somebody like who has like issues with like diabetes and sugar and stuff like that, what you always keep them in sugar, always. Keep them floating in it. All the time. I would, if it was me, they has to be buried in a jar, and I would have sugar, and then what I would have is I'd take some water, not much water, but you would make what's called a simple syrup, and I would shake that motherfucker for that bitch every single day. Yep. Shake it up, put a candle on it. 'Cause, you know, what does a candle do? It lights the path. That's what it does. It illuminates things. That's what you, every day. That's what you do. Like again, like these things do not have to be complicated. We tend to overcomplicate things ourselves, and because we tend to overcomplicate things ourselves, we wonder why our shit don't be doing what it's supposed to be doing. Go ahead, my darling.
So I have a question. I know there's power in the tongue, and are there spells that you could do without anything, just by saying it? Because I've been told various times, why should you say, why can you curse people out because you're making a spell on them? So I want to know if that, how accurate it is.
Here's the thing. You want to cuss somebody out, then you can cuss somebody out. Do your words have the ability to manifest things? Sure, absolutely they do. But sometimes don't be so afraid of the manifestation of the word by itself. And I'll just give you an example of that. I could be sitting in my living room and I'm gonna say, you know what? I want a cheeseburger. I want a cheeseburger. But you know what? I ain't gonna get that motherfucking cheeseburger, so I'll get off my ass and go get the pan and put it on the stove and turn the heat on and put some meat in there. So, you know, like, the speaking of something is the beginning of a manifestation or the potential to begin a manifestation. But then the work that goes along with that is where that manifestation grows and becomes from the spirit side into the mundane side.
So basic how it works is
Dead.
dead. Is that what it is?
Right.
Okay. Back to the Crisco behind the toilet.
Yeah.
Okay, let's just say, for instance, somebody has somebody some Crisco behind the toilet and they've gained like tons of weight. That person really can't like break up in their crib and go grab the Crisco and get the picture out. So how would somebody clear themselves of that? Like if I know that somebody did that to me, like, what she got me behind that toilet? How do I fix myself? I'm asking for myself too.
The thing is that somebody has to be sensitive enough to understand that that's what's going on. Then after that, then we go into, you know, things that break work. To sever that, to break that cord. Because they created the cord, but the cord can be broken. And so that's when we go into cleansing and, you know, and work breaking magic to stop that, you know, from going on. And I will tell you this, one of the best things in the entire world for breaking work is low jaw root. Low jaw root. One of the most wonderful things when it comes to breaking work on someone is low jaw.
You just like rub it up for your body.
You're gonna make a bath with it. You make a bath with low jaw root. It's gonna be low jaw root, angelica root, rue, and you're gonna use sea salt.
So from a cultural standpoint, if you want to lay a trick, maybe this is gonna be something that's gonna take more than one person, but to help protect our kids from being killed by the police, the injustice that's going on now, particularly against, you know, people of color or like, how do you lay a trick, or do you have to do that with the group of other fellow believers to make that trick work?
Because that issue is a very large and expanded issue, realistically, it's gonna take more than one. You know, because so basically, it's like if there's a train that's, you know, coming down the tracks and that train stops, but it needs like a push. One person can't push the train, but 100 people And that's, that's like part of what I was talking about, yesterday, is that, when it comes to, these things, especially like, like these big things that are going on, the more unified that we are, especially like in our work, the more powerful we become, because what happens is that, that laser, on whatever it is that issue is, becomes expanded and becomes stronger. So the unification of all of us workers as people have the ability to facilitate change on a much larger scale than that. Can one person do it alone? Absolutely not. Because, that's like trying to, stop a river by throwing one pebble, in the middle of it. We can do a tiny bit, but this is where unification is something that is absolutely necessary in order to really facilitate that change. I mean, let's just like with the Haitian Revolution, one person couldn't do it. What did it take? Everybody. But when everybody got together, shit changed real quick. So it's that same principle. So yeah, I think they're giving me the signal that we're about done. But anyway, thank y'all for coming to this class. And I wanted to thank y'all for attending this weekend. And yeah, many blessings and shit and stuff.